My personal favorite was white mikauki, a lot of sugar at once among sweets. I also remember there were these little matski caramel candies with poppy seeds which you could buy at the school shop. Back in school days, I think they cost 10 or 20 groszy, also great.
For me, it was more those artificial eggs you could buy at the school shop, tiny ones, kind of like gummies. And of course the traditional grzeszki wafers.
For me, it was probably mostly homemade cakes. But I think I remember a special treat. It was something whipped. Egg yolk with sugar. I don't know if you know what I mean. Alcohol mogiel, oh of course. Some people would add a little something extra, but I think when I was really little, not yet.
For my first communion, a Nokia with a keypad, that was my first phone. And actually when I got it, I remember running out into the village so happy that I finally got my first phone.
At the end of elementary school, I got that phone right before I went to my first summer camp.
Well, I bought mine myself, my first phone, because yeah, it was probably the 5110, 6110, all of those in order, then the 3110, 3310. Right, after that I kept changing them. I really got into gadgets. I was amazed that you could call someone wow. Yeah, those were the times, but I had to buy it myself, you know. I remember, but I can't say.
For me, it was actually creating an account on the social networking site Nasza Klasa, which doesn't exist anymore, just to play games.
For me, the internet is associated with that first sense of freedom. It was IRC channels. I still remember in college when we would lock ourselves in and stay after classes. I guess today the equivalent would be Snapchat or all the social media platforms. Back then, it was such a thrill. Channels, topic groups, anonymity, meeting new people. It was incredible. IRC was something that really opened up the world to me through the internet. No, nothing's happening. We were waiting
For you. You'll be in the recording too.
But listen, these are important things. What would have happened if he hadn't made it?
The first game, so actually, maybe not the first, but the first thing that came to my mind was like at home. I played Margonem, at my uncle's I played Gothic, and at my aunt's I played The Sims.
What I definitely remember, I'm not sure if it was on a Commodore or a similar type of computer. I saw some game, but the first thing I really remember is the Super Nintendo, which I actually owned, brought over from Germany. And that was, in fact, I still have it to this day. It's a bit dusty, to be honest. Maybe I should refresh it someday, but it's awesome. Nintendo and Mario are what I associate with my very first game. In
my time, for my generation, magazines, I don't know, Secret Service and all that stuff about games, computer setups and conversations about that among the boys, but girls often joined in too. Well, it was just a craze. I don't even know where I would start. I think something that made the biggest impression on me came a bit later. All those, the first FPS games, you know, Doom, Quake, Duke Nukem, that was just out of this world, really, but we played everything. In between sports, and with games there were always two camps. What do? Half the time we played computer games and the other half we played soccer just out on the field. Those were the two biggest passions. I mean, both have stayed with me to this day.
Well, that's pretty traditional actually, yeah. Soccer, hide and seek, more like that. Childhood was basically cops and robbers.
My childhood was mainly spent in the countryside, so I was surrounded by nature, and all the games were connected to whatever was around us, from trees to all kinds of barns, to running on hay, to building forts in the bushes, which, even though they were thick, eventually, because of
The tunnels were later?
Yes, it was because of our later interactions with that area that they, so to speak, expanded on their own. We had this huge fort. Jesus. Honestly, it's such a great memory. When we were in Elverdal, that on their playgrounds they also have these kinds of elements. There are bushes and inside there's a little fort. Inside a fort, and I think that's nostalgia.
I actually believe that even Jacek was there, if my memory serves me right.
I went.
In that fort.
A lot of biking, because that was like a steed. That bike gave you such a sense of freedom. Traveling around, and there were bike gangs. Then of course came the first mopeds. Not everyone remembers the Garys. And motorization was starting to become fashionable and everyone dreamed about it. But those first childhood memories definitely are about the bike. Those cops and robbers games, well, I guess it was inspired by Miami Vice and those first TV series, so we really got into it. We smuggled leaves, did all sorts of crazy things. There were a lot of fans involved in that, but also a lot of hardcore stuff, like riding a bike straight ahead with your eyes tied shut. It ended in all sorts of ways.
Like scavenger hunts mostly.
A lot of emotions, that's true.
Great.
A year, like for a boys' march, I guess.
For me, my first playground was more of a metal one. You could easily hurt yourself there. You could really get hurt on it, but when I turned 10, then there were those wooden playgrounds, just regular ones, much safer.
For me, back home in the spring, I just remember that at some point we finally had a sandbox built with sand poured in, but that was only after one of the neighbors. He built one himself at his plot, and in the end, we all played there, but I think my real playground, that was just the local flora at the time. Basically all the trees, bushes, and of course the fauna as well.
Mine will be brief. There wasn't one. There was no playground in my time. I remember the climbing frame, and of course we all used to hang from it in all sorts of positions. And I also recall those huge concrete slabs stacked up for building apartment blocks, which was still being built back then. That was our playground. So the more dangerous it was, the better. You had to jump from one row of slabs to another. The farther, the more, along with the rebar sticking out from them.
So basically you were doing parkour.
Hardcore version, because it was extremely challenging, but yes.
Well, mainly actually once I had that phone, that Nokia, whenever anything was playing on Eska or Viva, I would turn on the recorder and record it so I could listen to it later.
The first songs I ever heard were by the German band Tic Tac Toe, which I remember so well. I had another one of my favorite cassettes. It was Top 1 2000. It was Polish Disco Polo at that time. I somehow liked it very much.
And it was such a compilation. Polo?
Yes, exactly.
It was around at Grandpa's, right?
Yes.
I usually listened to vinyls. I had older sisters there, some in general, probably Polish, a lot of bands, some first T albums. Love D Mono, a lot of Polish rock, of course Jackson, the Bad album. There were also some embarrassing albums like New Kids, but Mark Wahlberg came out of that too, so I wouldn't judge too harshly. Man, then I accidentally got some reel-to-reel tapes, but what I remember most is Niedźwiedź and the hit list, recording it onto cassette, playing it a million times, and then Niedźwiedź would say something again and it wouldn't get recorded, the whole piece. Playing it back in the first cars, well, that's probably the most I remember, is that Bear. Everyone sat down and just listened.
Bear?
The Bear brand. Oh.
I had notes. It was always one glitter, one for 3 regular ones. And also my brother is actually about the same age. He collected Bakugans instead. Those little balls that you would throw and...
No, well, for example, of the things I collected, I definitely remember there were Pokemon Tazos, and there was also a game made for them. Definitely the character cards from Chio Chips, which featured Dragon Ball. And that was my favorite cartoon at the time, which I held very close to my heart. And thanks to it, I also weighed a bit more than the average classmate. I ate a lot of them, so... And because of that, my collection was also, of course, really big, so that was kind of a...
Win or lose.
Yeah.
We didn't collect anything because there really wasn't anything, so you couldn't really collect much. If someone had something, it was always very unique. There were some NBA cards, I remember that. Everyone went crazy for those. I think it was somewhere in the 1990s. There was a huge boom for it, but it was so collectible that if someone had 3, they were considered a collector. At least that's how I see it.
Naruto, and actually the old version of Peter Pan.
Pokemon Dragon Ball. Because different versions came out. Then, of course, I also liked watching them. All the bedtime cartoons that aired at 7 p.m., I think, on Polish television. And that was also, you never really knew for sure what was going to be on, so that was also kind of... And
you know what was the worst? When you were waiting, and suddenly it was DPC. It was terrible.
Damn, because there were no cartoons, so we watched, I remember someone got up in the morning, they had to watch some agricultural Sunday or something like that. Yes.
agribusiness.
Exactly. These were my memories. It dripped onto the 19th, just like yours, and we watched whatever was on. First fairy tales, well, I don't know, Little Mole, ahoy. Greetings to our Czech friends. I remember this Wolek Olek Krycik.
I used it a lot, but Żal Piel, something like that.
She was so called, ale zvała.
Oh, she was there too?
That was also used to describe something funny.
All this is modern, right? They don't say it. For me, it's like it was yesterday. I don't remember my old, probably some lines from some NBA guys who would do their own chant or something like that. And all these things you're talking about, I still use them all the time, you know? Me too.
Yeah, same here.
That's hilarious.
She didn't recognize it.